Meta Perspective Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to Meta Perspective Podcast. We're your hosts, Alex,
Evan,
and the girl. This is the show where we talk about deep and interesting topics and try to get to the heart of the idea with different perspectives.
we got your chat pulled up here, so anything we say, you can respond to, and we'll include you in the conversation. And we want to hear what you say because Meta Perspective Podcast is not meta
Without your perspective.
But yeah, we've been doing this podcast for a couple of years now. We are streaming on YouTube, trying to get some more followers. So if you are joining us for the first time, please give the channel a follow. And yeah, as we said before earlier, we want to hear what you have to say. We got the chat pulled up here, and we will have a call line at some point. It's not active right now, but feel free to jump in. And if you don't like what we have to say, or if you do like what we have to say,
Tell us.
contend with us. So yeah, this is about open and honest discussion. Obviously, there's been a lot going on the past couple weeks with the political changes and everything like that. So there's a lot to talk about. Tonight's episode is going to be addressing some of the conflicts that we've all been experiencing in our own lives. Basically, we're at a point now where it seems that the ideologies, there seems to be two major ideologies. They're really coming to head, and we're all humans on this earth. We all want to live and experience life. We all have relationships that we care about in our own life. And most of the things that, you like somebody, or you're in the family with somebody, or the interactions and relationships you have in your life really don't have anything to do with this kind of political ideology, but it's becoming very divisive and starting to damage those kinds of relationships. And tonight's discussion is going to be about why. What's the psychology behind this? Why are we so divided, and why can't we kind of try to find some kind of common ground? And it's a lot easier to disagree with people now than it is to agree with them. And then there's some things at play when it comes to that. I guess just to start it off, it's people's beliefs are sacred to them in a lot of ways. So, whether you believe something spiritually, ideologically, or just kind of believe something to be true or a fact or whatever, it should be something that should be up for debate, or at least you should be able to debate or defend your position and things like that. But it's harder and harder to have those conversations because for whatever reason, these beliefs, when they're challenged, it almost becomes impossible to break through that barrier. And I think we're kind of being held back by this psychological barrier that is basically, we're dug in. We're rooted in our belief, and anything that threatens that belief is a threat to our ego, is a threat to our understanding of life, and is usually rejected, which makes conversations a lot harder when it comes to politics or the way things should be. And I think everybody would like to kind of be on the same page, but it's not that simple.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely noticed major changes, even just in the past 10 years, of people feeling so distant from each other that if you don't agree with my ideology, it's because of your morals. And I see a lot of that where people are ending relationships, friendships, even cutting off like family, friends, or just completely because of their beliefs. I think the biggest issue is when people aren't really talking about these things and making assumptions. I think there's almost nothing more offensive than to have somebody tell me that they know my views without me, without actually having any conversation, you say one thing, they're like, oh. So you're for that side. And you're like, well, here's my reasoning. I already know your reasoning. I don't need to hear you out. I'm not going to let you explain. I'm going to cut you off as a friend. And you're like, well, that's fine. But for you to just pre-assume my morals and where I stand because of how you view this side collectively, it's offensive. It's like, you're stupid. You're too stupid to understand what you support, and what you support is so terrible that I can't even be your friend. But you won't let me explain it. It's like, was this ever really a friendship if it's that easy for you to write off?
I think that is kind of like maybe the root start of the problem is that, the political and ideological tension has built to a point where you don't care the person that you're talking to what they actually believe. You're assuming what they believe based on kind of what the representation of that ideology or that concept has already established. So you group people into groups, and it's like, it doesn't matter what you believe. No one is an individual anymore. It's just this side or that side.
Yeah.
And you can make an argument with that could be by design. There might be a motivation to cause this kind of discourse and conflict for a purpose, and you're really galvanizing people. You're causing people to become more aggressive and more deeply rooted, and you're kind of preventing the open-mindedness that we would all like to cultivate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been the most frustrating thing in this area, where there is a lot of debate over what is true and what can be agreed upon as true.
And what's reliable.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, basically, like, everything is everything is debatable at this point, or contradictory. There's alternate sides to every argument. And it's really creating a gridlock of you can't find common ground with somebody, so you write them off, you reject them, and anything that threatens your understanding or belief of the world is automatically a threat to you, and you kind of shut it down.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what I think makes politics so hard nowadays, is people aren't willing to talk about it with this preconceived notion of, I already know what you stand for. And it's like you said, like, potentially, could this be something that is intentional? Could it have been designed a certain way? And people would think that's crazy. It's silly that you would strategically divide people by telling one side one thing and one side the other. And I would say you probably went through that in high school. All it takes is one person in the group who doesn't like you, who spreads lies and rumors about you. I don't have to say one true thing or back up that one true thing. All I have to do is say it with passion about you. Now, I'm going to make it seem like you're a terrible person. And if anybody in the front group even tries to, like, talk to them or this or that, like you're dead to me. I make it very clear that this was such a horrible thing that if you don't just understand it's horrible and avoid that person, it's like if I said, like, this person murders grandmas. And you're like, well, that's terrible, but let me go hear him out. Whoa, you want to hear out the grandma killer? Why would you even want to talk to him?
The grandma killer.
But it's like, nobody knows he murdered grandmas. Like, we haven't seen proof. How do we know? Really? What are you, on his side? No, it's not that. Maybe I don't need evidence or proof. Maybe I will just go along with you.
You support killing grandmas? Is that it?
And so all it takes is one kid in the group goes to you and says, hey, what's going on with all this? And you tell the truth. You say, this person's, me and them had a falling out. This dude, he tried to kiss me. and I wasn't about it. And he thought, and he's ashamed of himself and doesn't want to come out yet and doesn't want people to know. So he ostracized me and kind of pushed me out of the group so that you guys don't have a chance to hear my story of why I did what I did to him. I didn't hit him because I'm against stuff or this or that or blah, blah. I was offended by the move and reacted. You know, he doesn't want you to know that. So that one person goes, hey, I heard this. You're out of the group too. They spread rumors. So now people understand I don't want to be kicked out of this group of great people. So I guess we just lost 2 people. So it's a lot easier to accept we're just going to get rid of them because we're trimming the fat. Now our group's even better. We got rid of the bad apples out of our group. And I think that's how people see politics a lot of times is, well, one side's good and one side's bad, but indefinitely. Not that there's good points. This is rotten to its core. So all we have to do is just push them away, which, again, that's what creates the problem is when one person in the family does some research and goes, why did we stop hanging out with these people? Like my parents used to take all of us to XYZ's house, you know, every Christmas we would go visit them. Like, why don't we talk to them anymore?
Yeah.
It's like, well, their views. And it's like, well, that's confusing. I want to look into what their views are to figure out what makes them so bad that we would end that friendship. And then you start talking about, hold on, they actually might have some good points. Oh, you can move out immediately. Now you can go live with them.
Yeah.
We're done with you. And it's this cycle of which you only end up being the fat you're trimming. You're trimming off, you're trimming off reason, rationality. People who are willing to talk. You don't have to agree with somebody. You could fundamentally disagree. You could hate every point they make and still love the person. Say, I'm willing to talk to you. That's what love is saying I'm willing to talk. And when you're not willing to talk to me and you push me away without hearing my views, it's hard for me to interpret that in any other way than you absolutely hate me. I hate your views, but I love you, and I would never want to end a friendship. But I do want us to talk about this because one of us is being misled. Well, I don't care if you're being misled. I don't like your views. I don't want to hear it. I don't want us to talk about it. You're just cut off. And it's like, well, that's not even giving me a chance.
Yeah.
Feels like you hate me. What relationship did we have as friends or whatever before this if it's that easy?
Right, if it's so meaningless. It reminds me a lot of, it's almost synonymous with kind of the idea of like biodiversity or like a forest. And this is like, you know, it's like a nice diverse ecosystem where everything has a purpose, and then there's dynamic flow, ebbs and flows of everything is interconnected and everything works together for a whole, for betterment of everything involved. Versus kind of what we've done with our society is this monoculture, you know, miles of palms for palm oils and stuff like that. And then the forest gets cut down for this like strictly monoculture, just this thing growing, a bunch of bananas, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not good for the environment. That's not good for the ecosystem at all. You know, it's like a healthy, thriving biome needs all of these pieces in order to check and balance its own self. So when you have no checks and balances, then basically your ideology, your psychological mind can run rampant down this rabbit hole, and you think that it's rational because everything around you is telling you that, oh yeah, this is the way it is, and especially now with technology, and you have all these kind of sects and bubbles, and everyone's so divided in a way where they can retreat from the actual world into this ecosystem where it's only this monoculture ideology, and it never threatens their sense of self or their beliefs, and that is easy. It's the easy way out. It's not. If you're never challenged, then you're never going to have to justify why you think what you think. And I think this really comes down to kind of the psychological concept of defense mechanisms. Because we've built, everyone has a belief, an underlying belief, whether it's a spiritual belief or an ideological belief or just a simple like physical belief, how you should work out or what you should do with your time and all that. Like some people play video games, some people work out, and those don't necessarily, one's a sedentary thing, one's an active thing, but like, you could do both and be a balanced person and understand both sides, but it's very much, oh no, we don't do that because we're about working out. Like, oh, we don't do that because we're not about working out, or, that's just a basic bullshit example. But When it really comes down to it, when your beliefs are threatened, that's when you go into defense mode, and you're unable to accept an alternative. And I think that's kind of the point that we've come to now, is that people have been so deeply rooted in their own belief, and which has been reinforced by everything that everyone they talk to, everything that they see, where anything that opposes that seems like the total opposite of the antithesis of your existence. And it's very easy psychologically at that point to reject it as not true, or find some reason or justification why you don't even have to give that person or that idea the time of day, because it's so far from where you are, you're not even going to let it crack your hardened shell.
Yeah, it's tribalism. It's one group telling you, for example, Trump's a bad person, and he's just bad and racist and hates women. He hates all people except for white people, because he's a white supremacist. So if that's what you keep hearing over and over and over by reputable people, but if I come and ask you, can you give me an example? Now, you keep hearing it so much, and now you're in this tribalism thing where you're with all these other people who just agree, and the idea of somebody hating people just for how they are born is a very easy thing to get on board with. Yeah, I wouldn't like somebody if they just hated people for no reason. It's easy to get hurt and hate. It's harder to rise above it and be like, I still love people, even if they don't love me, even if they don't agree with me. Like, I can still love people and look past, their experiences through life and see the person inside. So when you have these people come up and it's like, I want to ask the question, why do you think he's a racist and all this stuff? Are you kidding me? You're going to ask me why? You want me to, so are you defending him? It's looking for stuff. If you're not given reasons and examples to defend your argument for why you're that passionate and emotional about why he's racist and all this stuff, if you don't have legitimate things within the proper context to say, here it is, irrefutable, he's a racist. If you don't have that, but you're very emotional about it, you're looking for things. So since you don't have anything to provide, now all I see is somebody trying to defend him, asking me to prove that he's not. Like, I'm sorry, you want me to prove that he's not a racist and give you examples? Why don't you just use Google? It's like, I do. I haven't found anything. It's like, wow, so you don't think anything that you've come across is racist? So you normalize that stuff. That's okay for you. You're like, what's okay? What did he do that you think I might be doing? What am I signing on to and kind of agreeing with? What is it? And it's like, racism. But how? How am I racist? What am I doing that is in line with what he's doing? It's like, you guys are just all the same. How can you even defend racism? It's like, I'm not defending it. I'm asking why I am that.
Right.
I'm confused. I asked you a question, why you hate this person so much, because I didn't know they were racist, and I want to know how they're racist. And now you're yelling at me, you're mad at me, and you want to cut me off because I'm asking, because I'm interested. I want to educate myself. If this is a bad person, if I'm following a bad person, can you educate me as to why? Give me a proper links, not to some mainstream article that just says he's a racist and this and that, and then just goes on about some other stuff. And it's like, yeah, these points jump from point. These are 5 different topics, and none of them really support the headline. It's distracting because as I read them, yeah, these can be misinterpreted as offensive and this and that, but it's not a whole story on an action that he did, because we have plenty of examples throughout history, in America, where we've had politicians, who are racist, and they're signing bills to try to hold people back. That happens, but it's like, if you can't give me an example of what this person has physically done,
right?
Like I was saying, it's like, we have evidence that Biden did vote against desegregation in schools, and when questioned about it in the media, he was quoted saying, "I don't want my kids to grow up in a jungle, a racial jungle." So it's weird to be yelled at and be called racist for supporting one person, or it's weird to be called racist for asking a question why this candidate is considered racist, but then not having your point validated when you're like, but this guy actually has done and said racist stuff with his policies. His reason for his racist policies was a racist reason and a racist response. Why, if you're that passionate about racism and people being hurt, it shouldn't matter what side of the aisle it's on. If I see a politician or a celebrity or somebody that I follow, and I find out that they do something that I disagree with fundamentally, it doesn't matter if I enjoy that artist. You just really disappointed me. And just like any human, you make mistakes, but what you have done is egregious, and I can't support that. That's fine. But you need to be able to say, well, he beats the shit out of his kids. That's why I don't support him. Well, that's a good reason.
Yeah.
But if you just say he's abusive, well, what happened? I don't know. I saw an article and I just ran with it, and now I hate him. You're like, well, you should know if it's true, though, if you like the person.
Yeah.
It's like, because if somebody says I did something, you're going to want to know if it's true, right? You're not just going to believe him and hate me. We'll see. Depends what I hear.
Well, I mean, that's it too. It's like it's become the lesser of two evils kind of mentality, where it's like, if you really press somebody, okay, you believe something, why do you believe it? Tell me the justification, back it up, why this is the best, best way to think, and not even solution, but the best, the best, what's the right word for it? The best perspective. Meta perspective.
Nailed it.
So people are unable, they don't go for that first. If you were challenging someone's belief or offered an alternative, and you were like, okay, well, that I disagree with that because this is better for this reason. And nobody does that now. It's always like, oh, well, this is better because your reason's worse. And it doesn't give you a chance to dive into the actual, solution. It's not a solution mindset. It's a mitigation. It's avoiding the worst versus gravitating towards the best. And it really kind of comes into play where it's like kind of like you were saying, it's like anytime you try to share anything that could be substantially agreed upon as factual, it's very much up for debate, because even facts now don't actually accomplish the objective of convincing somebody that something is true. You could tell somebody it's a fact. This you saw this during COVID. It's like you can quote the numbers of CDC like deaths or something like that, or these demographics, or these kind of this data that's published by the government, and people will disagree with it because they don't believe that it's true, and there's no way to verify it in real time. So really what we have going on is a massive amount of background information that goes into these beliefs, and as soon as this becomes challenged, the back and forth, it's lost on agree. Like, if you provide a source, then someone's just going to say, I don't agree with your source, and that's the end of it. Because we cannot, if we can't agree on a source, we can't agree with what's true, then we're never going to find common ground, and we're never going to chip away at this wall that we've both built.
Yeah, and that's my problem with that wall, is it's not supported by the very beliefs that help build the wall. So
build the wall.
But really, it's like if you have somebody who says, I don't agree with whatever, and
or deportation,
or like they go
something.
Let's say I'm having an argument about deportation with somebody, and this person for the third time has quoted this guy. So finally I've had enough, and I go, you understand that this guy is connected to these organizations. He's funded by the government. This person who's on TV and a media personality, this person is funded by the government and gets extra payment from all these other outlets. This is not a guy who just built an empire from nothing. This is a guy who is propped up by the empire. Okay, well, that doesn't mean he's a bad person. That doesn't mean what he's saying is not true. That doesn't mean that he can't speak his mind anyway, even though they're the ones funding him and giving him the show and the platform to talk on. It doesn't mean that he has to say what they like. It's like, well, Rationally, yes, it does. But if we're going to go that route, okay, here's my supporting reasons. Even if you listen to me, you're like, okay, well, maybe, I mean, that's just how business is, and it's justified. He doesn't do that. Here's proof that he does. Well, that's just how business is. Okay, so now you're changing your argument that you're justifying that it's okay that they do that because that's business. Okay, well, doesn't this disqualify? No, you would have to show me that they're actually a bad person. So I give more evidence until the point where the person sees this person irrefutably is a bad person. Then it changes. Well, I mean, it's not like I really even care about that person anyway. Now the person that you've been propping up and you've really been pushing, you switch and you're like, well, I don't really, that person doesn't even matter. They're not going to stop following that person probably.
Yeah.
But they're going to then disregard them from the conversation and be like, well, that doesn't affect my point at all.
Yeah.
And you're like, but
subtract it from.
It's like, but I've been trying to ask about your perspective. You keep giving me examples of this guy. When I tear this guy down, you're like, well, that guy doesn't matter anyway. But it's what your points are supported by.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of that where people have this idea of how things should be. And when I'm like, but it's coming from a corrupt source. And they're like, well, still, the ideology is good. And I'm like, but the conversation we're having is about how the ideology is flawed. And this isn't going to make the impact we're all hoping it does. Instead, this is going to take more of all of our money and donations and apply it to things that have nothing to do with the change that we all are hoping for.
Yeah.
So it's like, at what point do we say, hey, this is corrupt, you are taking our money, you do what we say, and you spend that money properly, or we dismantle your organization. We take you down. We will sue you for being non-for-profit and spending our money on yourself. Like, we'll do something. You know, we're not just going to sit there and be like, they got us, hoodwinked. You're going to be upset. At the very least, you should not keep supporting them.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with a lot of organizations where they're exposed for spending money on themselves and within their own networks and supporting politics and other things. And it's like, we're giving them money because we don't know how to change some of these areas and improve them. So we're giving you the money because you're representing the problems. So we assume you know the best way to spend that money to fix those problems. But if your organization is not talking about what they're doing, not telling you how they're spending the money, not talking about solutions, only talking about problems, it's like, how can you be so passionate about something? And when I ask, where's the progress? You go, you're one of those guys. It's like, yes, I'm somebody who wants things to get better. And I'm wondering why you and all these people are supporting the things that aren't making things better, but realistically taking money for us, creating more division, and really just stirring the pot and making things worse.
Well, I mean, I think at some level, you know, the division is what, you know, it's better for all divided and fighting each other than if we're all united and fighting one common enemy. And I think that common enemy is the forces that are trying to control us, trying to influence our media, influence our decisions.
Making it sound like it is intentional.
But yeah, I mean that's the thing, and then like, you know, just entertaining that thought of maybe this division is intentional can be, you know, abrasive to some people. You know, it's like, you know, could we both agree that someone is out to get us both? No, it's usually like, oh, someone's out to get me, or someone's out, you know, someone's after my stuff, so I have to defend, and I have to go even harder. And people are become blinded by this back and forth to where, you know, you're less likely to agree with somebody on something and establish some kind of common ground. At least if you do that, then you can kind of move forward and start to bridge that gap. But like, you have to think about the objective. Like, the objective in a lot of cases is not that we want to be friends. You know, it's usually it's an argument. It's having to defend yourself and attack the other side. And like, this mentality basically closes you off from being open-minded, being challenging your own beliefs. And, you know, I'm a skeptical person. I like to challenge my own beliefs. I'm not, you know, immune from the bias of this psychological phenomenon of defending my own, you know, beliefs. But you really kind of have to base it off of something. Like, if I'm defending something that I've heard from somebody else, and I can't sit down and write an essay about why I believe it, or what I'm basing my belief off of, then it's not really much of a belief. It's been given to me, and I'm just using it as a tool to justify my own actions and my own beliefs, and then reject anything that is not that. And that is the tribalism that you're talking about. And it becomes so convoluted when there's so many aspects to every single thing, where even if you get on one tangent of discussion, that it's easily, there's easy 10 different tangents that could be thrown in during that discussion that take away from the journey of getting from point A to point B. So to get from A to Z, there's 25 other letters that you got to get through to first, and you can't come back to A without going through B, C, and J and all that, and then you lose sight of A, and then you never get to Z because you're going circles.
No progress was made. You can focus on the problem all day, but if you're not thinking about how to fix it, the problem remains. Problems don't just disappear, because if they just disappeared, we would never worry about anything.
Right.
You have to have these arguments so that everybody can agree on how do we handle this together. This is our country. It's the same idea if I said, hey, little people are misrepresented. You don't understand how hard it is to be a little person and try to work at a normal job. Nothing is at proper height for you. You can't even go in the break room and get a cup of coffee properly. There's all these things that you don't understand. On top of that, imagine going and like the only place you can be represented in movies and stuff like that is almost as like a cartoon. You're a lollipop kid. You're all of these things that are not like, they're not empowering. It doesn't make you confident and say, that was me in the movie. Look at me. I'm just like a 7-year-old holding a lollipop. Like, this is an actor. You sit there and you're like, these are my options. If I said, let's raise money and do stuff, plenty of people would emotionally be like, yes, I want to help that. I want to help those people. That's great. What did that organization say about what they're going to do? They didn't say anything. They just said, this isn't fair. You agreed and gave them money. So if I spend that money on other things and I just keep talking about all these different ways that these people are misrepresented, how they really aren't given the same options, and they're not accommodated at most places of work, these could be real issues. But if I'm not talking about progress and anybody else is like, hey, everybody's giving all this money to this organization, I actually did research because I think this is weird. Because they never talked about how they're gonna do anything. Like, we all know that must suck, but all they're doing is going and saying, "Give us money because we're gonna talk about it sucks." And it's like, okay, we all know that maybe things could get better for little people, but I'm gonna look into the organization, see exactly what they plan on doing with the money, and then I find out they're giving their money to certain politicians and things like that, and stuff that's not really making a difference. It's like, are you trying to almost bribe to get laws changed to help them? If so, whatever. What laws? What are you doing to help them? What is going to help?
Yeah.
So it gets to the point where you get a whole group that gets upset and says, hey, stop giving your money to these organizations. And then that's how this all starts, is people get offended. You don't care. And it's like, I do care. I also care about you getting taken advantage of while nothing gets done. On one hand, I do feel bad for them, but now I feel bad for them and you, because you're just giving money to somebody. You want to help these people, do something to help these people if you really care about it, but don't just say, I gave this organization money, therefore their lives are better and I feel good. No, it's a lie. It's the same thing with the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. And it's like, out of nowhere, this thing became huge. And it's like, who made this so popular? Who has such a big account that you could just blow this up in a week?
Yeah.
And then you see people saying, I dumped a bucket of ice water on my head. Now you have to do it. Or you have to donate, what was it, $200 to ALS. So you had a lot of donations and things like that.
So wait, but the people that dumped ice on themselves didn't donate?
They didn't. You don't. A lot of them still did, but you technically don't have to. That's the thing. It's like you either have to donate or you have to dump the water over your head.
So like everyone was like, "Look at me, guys! I'm dumping the water on my head." It's like, I'm choosing not to donate.
This is gonna suck. I'm gonna hate this, but it beats It beats a good cause.
It beats
you know?
spending $200 on a cause that I don't even know what the acronym stands for.
All right, go ahead, Tom. Show how embarrassing this is. I'm so glad I didn't spend that $100 I had to help them, and instead embarrass myself online.
Yeah.
To show that I'm a cheapskate. But the problem was after that whole thing ended, or towards the end of it, the website that you could go to donate and all that, the supporting website was in connection with the pharmaceutical companies. So towards the end, they come out on their main website and they say, I think it was 90. I want to say it was 97 or 94% of all proceeds and donations raised went to the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
The website and everything was cited. It was the pharmaceutical companies that made all of that. And their money, the money they got, I can guarantee you didn't go to research.
Yeah.
They get funding. They have lots of money. But the issue is that you find out that I think it was like, if I remember correctly, I think it was 7% of the donations went to ALS. So it's like, why didn't you guys just donate to ALS if you care about it?
Yeah.
Is it because now you can be trendy and popular online, fitting in with everybody else, pouring cold water over your head? Like, and then giving the pharmaceutical companies that killed your grandpa even more money? Like, at what point do you logically say, how does this help? And you should be allowed to ask me how this helps, and I should be able to educate you on how this helps. If there's nothing in that conversation, somebody has to rethink what they stand for. I think that's the big thing, is ignorance. People are afraid to actually see what's going on, so they're in denial. They're like, everything's fine. Like, you're part of the problem. You guys are scared that something's happening. It's like, well, let me explain to you how it is. They're like, no, I don't want to hear your conspiracy stuff. Well, it's a rejection of, it's fear. I don't want to know how bad things really are. We all subconsciously know. I believe we all subconsciously know things are different now than they were in like the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
Things are weirdly different.
Oh, yeah.
And fast. And everybody's just like, it's okay. It's technology. You just have to learn to adapt. But it's hard for me to take that stance when there's no logic for why we're all changing at such a fast rate. Like, we enjoyed the 90s. We enjoyed going out, walking around the park. Like, nobody goes out anymore. Everybody's kind of becoming hermits. They're all divided. It's like, there is some kind of intentional design here.
Well, I think, like kind of getting back to the tribalism thing, I think everybody, wants to feel like they're validated and they're part of a group. And I think that the divisive nature of what's been established for kind of like right and left or however you want to look at it, it doesn't have to be that. It could be two sides of any one issue. And it's like you find more comfort sticking to your guns, knowing that there's a group behind you than trying to challenge what you believe in order to understand the other side. I think that kind of comes out in a way where it's, even if you might consider certain aspects of things that contradict with your beliefs, there's ways to justify it. There's established talking points. There's things that you can repeat. So, like, at the end of the day, no one really gives a fuck. They're just kind of trying to fit in with their group, and they're trying to their ego has attached themselves to this, so to break away from that would be ego suicide, and to go outside of it would be pointless because you're not getting any validation there. To question what you believe without anyone present, what's the point? That's a good psychological practice to do, and that forms a strong belief, and that's what we would encourage you to do at anything that you believe or anything that someone would question about what you think or what you believe. In the privacy of your own mind and your own mental space, question and defend the reasons why you believe that. But I think on an open stance, you can't let the other person get at you. You can't show your yellow underbelly. Like you're gonna be pulverized by this force that you can't comprehend and you can't defend against yourself. So everyone gets defensive. They hide. They reject. they justify. And psychologically, it doesn't do you any favors because you're not becoming a more well-rounded person. You're becoming more dug in and more set in your ways.
More standoffish.
And
more
it
repellent.
adds to the conflict. And it's really coming to a head. Like, it's sad. It's sad to see people that you grew up with or people that you were friends with in the past that you don't feel like you could talk to them. You don't feel like you could be friends with them, even though you might not have even said anything to that person in years. You just know, based on what you've seen on social media or something like that, it's like, oh, well, this person's like far whatever side, like I don't want to interact with that person because, it could damage my own reputation. And at the psychological root of it, I don't want to question my own beliefs. And there is an ego death associated with that.
It's funny you said that. I actually had a friend on Facebook. I recently saw this. I'll find it. But it was the same thing saying if, you support this person at all, it is an attack on... It is a personal attack on me for you to support that and for you to be against everything of my rights and everything about me. There's no conversation. It's just if you support the stuff at all, you're discussing, I no longer want you as a friend. Please delete me. And it's like, that is like, do you not see how that looks? To sit there and be like, if you support this at all, just go away. It's like, wow, what a bitch. Like, that's how you come off. Like,
very hateful and intolerant.
Yeah, no matter who you are, guy or girl, what a bitch. What a rude thing to say. Like, you don't know what anybody's beliefs are. Some people might think a certain way and they might not be sure, but they don't know how to talk about it. And then you just sit there and be like, I don't know what you believe in. Oh, I didn't think that person believed in that stuff. Well, they did, and you hurt their feelings, and they blocked you, and they don't want to talk to you anymore because you made them feel like a bad person. It's like, that's what it does to people. Like, good, I want them to feel bad. It's like, but you don't know what they support. Like, it's ridiculous. But that's what I wanted to say was, it's like sports. You have two guys who genuinely hate each other's teams. And every time they walk by, they're just like, go Hawks. And they're like, yeah, Chiefs, Chief Nation. And they like mess with each other. It's like, oh yeah, because dude only had this many touchdowns. Are you kidding? We have this. Who do you got? This guy? And you're explaining my team's better because we have these guys. They have these yards. I understand the stats. I understand why I believe this team's better. And let me explain it to you. Yeah, but we have more championships. Okay, well, that's great. But anybody can get lucky a few times. Statistically, consistently, we are better. You have these actual arguments with people who fundamentally hate each other's views, but they will attack each other and argue till the sun goes down that my team is better, and I have all of these researched reasons why this team is the better team. It's just funny when you get to politics and people are like, I've never actually heard the other side's perspective. I just heard it's messed up. I don't want to hear it. And if you believe this stuff, just block me. You're like, dude, I just asked what movie you wanted to watch tonight. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how things are that emotional for you and that passionate. Like, I love the passion, but I don't understand how it's being challenged at me without actually understanding what I stand for. Just an assumption. Right. And that assumption is enough to never want to see me again. Like, that's crazy.
It's misplaced emotion. It's misplaced aggression and anger and
like, you're a fan of the Rams? I don't want to hear about the stats, anything. That team sucks. Fuck off. You're like, that really hurt my feelings. Okay.
They used to be in St. Louis.
I actually wanted to defend my point and why I like that team. You know, I lost my grandpa when I was 7. It was his favorite team, and he took me all the time. But you don't need to know why. You're right. I'll just shut the fuck up and leave you alone. Like, it's like you don't know why people support certain things, and you don't want to, and that's a problem.
And you have to kind of rise above it, like, getting into solutions here. But, like, whether you believe something or not, you got to rise above it, and you can't argue for argument's sake just to win. Like, winning an argument doesn't help you. There's no scenario where it benefits you. Like, maybe in the deep ego core of your mind, you're like, yeah, I won. Yes. but I lost every relationship I've ever had. Now I'm just a shell of a man with no friends, but I was right all along.
It's like you
And
didn't
it's
feel
like, that's
bad.
fucked up.
You didn't feel bad interrupting your friend 17 times while we all sat around and watched you guys debate, where you just interrupted him over and over. Every time he went to make a point, you would question one of his supporting details and not listen to all those details and the picture they paint. I think this, and these corrupt people supporting this, and this, you may not have known, but all of these people that I said earlier I don't like, they all run this. It's like, you could have legitimate reasons why you stand for what you stand for, but I lost my train of thought. But it's ridiculous that somebody could just dig their boots in. I mean, it's like you said, you can't win an argument.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's what I was saying. There's nothing more cringy than when you sit there and watch somebody keep cutting somebody off, keep interrupting them, not hearing their points out, not actually trying to listen to what they're saying, and then telling them that they're closed-minded, they're stupid, ignorant, and then just berating them with all these insults. You're a racist. You're these terrible things, and it's like, all I did was give my supporting reasons. You didn't tell me that these reasons weren't valid. You just said that I'm a bad person for having these reasons, but you haven't explained why having these reasons makes me a bad person.
Right.
Like, why? Like, this is supposed to be a debate that we're all sitting and watching us have, but instead it feels like it's about to turn into a counseling session. Why are you so angry when it comes to tariffs?
Right.
Yeah.
So
or
that's the
whatever.
thing,
You're like,
too.
why do you cry when we talk about tariffs?
Yeah.
You know, like, what did they do to you?
What did they do to you?
What did they do to you?
What do they do to us?
This is a safe space.
I mean, that's the thing, too. It's like, when you're not looking for a fight, when you're not looking for an argument, people bring it to you. And it's like, you know, I can deal with so much. Eventually I have to, like, at least defend myself. I'm only human. But it's like, I'm not out there trying to argue with people and stuff like that. But people get, you know, people get up in your psychological space and in your psychological grill, and like, they can't accept that you're just blowing off what they're saying. They have to double down. They got to come more aggressively at you. And it's like, why are you doing
And the
this?
arrogance.
Like, I'm not doing this to you.
That's the only times I've lost my composure, is the ignorant arrogance. Listen, you don't understand. When these countries go here and do this, this is what it does. Wow. Wow, you really believe that? Wow. Okay. You're like, I'm about to hit you. I'm trying to have an actual conversation, and I made a point, and all you did was make fun of me?
Yeah.
Like, dude, we can swing. I'm also down to resolve this in other ways. Yeah. Like, you have to understand that when you are willing to hear my point, that just making fun of me for it, not telling me why I should be, like, oh, you stand for that? You should be made fun of because everything you're talking about is sending all of our money to these places and doing this. Like, you realize how stupid you sound arguing that. Instead, I'll just laugh at you and then give a veiled kind of like attack of like, you're a stupid person for even trying to think that's a real thing, and then just laugh and be like, I needed that, thank you. You're gonna be like, wow, that was the most disrespectful thing anybody's ever done. And like, I didn't think laughing in a short commentary off of my topic would make me want to just murder somebody. Like, that's crazy. Like, wow, I get the anger that you guys feel now. Yeah. Like, that was insanely rude to do to somebody for no reason.
You can't even just like sit there and accept and listen anymore. It's like, you know, I've been in situations where it's like, I know someone's presenting me a view that's challenging the way I see things, and I let it happen. You know, I might kind of, you know, I always ask questions and make them question their reality. That's just kind of, that's what we do here on this podcast, and that's who we are. But it's like, you know, unprovoked way, I'll just kind of be like, I'll just take a background role and listen. And, you know, I'm not trying to throw anything back, but it's like, it accelerates. It gets more and more, and it eventually becomes like, well, fuck, I gotta say something now. It's like, you've gone farther than the line that I was willing to let happen, and now I just feel like I've been walked on for the 5 minutes that you were talking to me. You crossed the line, now I gotta say something. It's like, why can't you just present yourself in a way that's respectable, relatable, and constructive. None of it's constructive. It's always aggression, destructive, polarizing, and I think people are just trying to score win, like, psychological or political or ideological wins, or make you look stupid to, kind of the combatant version of value, where it's like, if I bring your value down, that means my value is higher now. So it's like, it just becomes petty. We're not getting anywhere with this.
Yeah, just be a decent, rational human. If you realize during a conversation or argument that you cannot actually logically articulate the reason why you support something, just say, you know what, I'll look into stuff, whatever. Like, I still believe what I believe. Agree to disagree. Let's have a good rest of the night. To sit there and say the fact that you think my view is so wrong and I can't defend it makes me want to get you out of my life, instead of on the side maybe looking to see if I might be wrong, or maybe you're wrong. I heard some of the things you said. Let me look it up. Actually, you said this last time. You're wrong for that. Okay, well, that was a good argument you gave me. So now we can talk about it. Whoa. I haven't finished researching, so like, I'm going to start berating you again. But it's not that hard to just say, agree to disagree. Ending any friendship or relationship at all over a disagreement that you don't fully understand.
Some external shit.
Yeah, if one side literally is like, I think we need to be taxed more, and I don't think any of the money should be spent on our country. We should help the whole world. Like, well, it's my money too. We should have a debate about this. Like, if you tell me that I'm a bad person and fundamentally I'm evil for not wanting to help other people, that's not an argument. Because I do want to help other people. I want to help the guy who's fucking working his ass off to get that money.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, it's like, we have problems here. It's like, I'm not saying we can't help other places. I'm just saying 100% of more taxes going to other countries is bad, and we should have a logical conversation to decide if the American people are going to support that idea. And that's the problem, is if you don't have people educating themselves, they're supporting ideas that sound good, but without actually understanding when that's implemented, what it will do.
And I think that's, for me, that's, obviously we've been pretty open about, supporting kind of this coalition of not only conservatives, but it's really challenging the status quo and helping reform things. But I think, in a certain aspect, it's very confusing to me how, the what I consider to be the right now is offering some solutions that, whether you agree with them or not, they are solutions. They are, things to be implemented that you can agree with or disagree with. And you can argue that and have a discussion about that. But I found it very confusing how, before this whole election and all this heat got ratcheted up, I was finding very little, from the other side, very little reasons why what they were doing was right, or even what that even was. So it's like, it's hard to stand on a position where you're saying that everything else but your side is wrong without offering something right. And I think that's what people are starting to kind of wake up to, or at least, be more open to, is like, okay, well, we have a lot of problems in this world. We need solutions. We don't need to just argue about things that aren't going to solve any problems. We want actual concrete, solutions. We want some substance here. So like the same people who are attacking the right now for going after these solutions that they've said that they're going to do, and then now they're doing them, they weren't offering those solutions, a year ago. We don't know what those solutions are. They weren't standing up for any policy or anything to be implemented. They were just saying all the things that were wrong with racism and sex, phobias and all this stuff. It's like that isn't a solution. You can't propose that to fix. You're just talking about the problems. You're not talking about the solutions. Now that kind of the right coalition side is in power, we're doing the solutions that we talked about, and there are things that I disagree with, and there are things that are disagreeable. But like, it's one thing to stand on a podium of solutions, another thing to stand on a podium of attacking what is wrong without offering a solution. And I think that's kind of a reason why a lot of people are so aggressive towards, Trump or conservatives and stuff like that. It's because they don't have anything that they can stand by and say, this is the better way. They don't have that. So they basically have to say, that's the wrong way. Don't do that. I don't know what to do, but don't do that. And we're like, conservatives.
You say, why not? They're like,
and conservatives are saying like, we should try this. We should do this. And a lot of that's the thing too. It goes both ways. It's not just one-sided. Conservatives are saying that too, like, but don't do that. Don't do what we've been doing. It's like, well, you can say that, but then you have to back up a reason. You have to give a solution. You have to say why what we were doing is not the right way in context of what we could be doing, which is this. And I think that is what is causing a lot of people right now to have such an aggressive reaction to what has happened politically in the past since the last election, is that they don't have anything to stand on, and they're really kind of trying to lash out in a way it's not justified by any solution. And that to me don't make no sense.
Yeah, like the best example I can think of is COVID and the vaccines. When that first started, I remember Trump came out almost immediately, and he was like, I'm going to have a vaccine made, and I'm going to have it out in like 6 months, like a year. And you can still find the videos of Biden and Kamala independently in their own videos saying, we will not take this vaccine. It's going to be a hard decision for every family.
Well, they were right.
But it's funny how
they were right.
But it's funny how their stance was, we will not take Trump's vaccine. And I remember, and at the time I knew a little bit of science, and I was like, when I heard Trump say that again, it doesn't mean that I agree with everything. I'm not a blanket follower.
Right.
I'm not over here sucking my thumb like, Danny, carry me to the finish line. Like, no, I'm going to sit there and criticize you a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think Trump's done a lot of great things, but at the same time, it's like I have my criticisms. I think when he said, like, I'm going to have a vaccine out, I remember thinking like I don't support that. Like, I think if you want to try to make something great, but I think that what's going on is really weird. This thing that's escaped, or however it got out there, it seems really weird. It has really weird symptoms, but I'm not going to take some expedited test vaccine to try to fight what seems like a laboratory virus. Like, all of this sounds like a cocktail of just chemicals and confusion.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that in my body. I don't get shots and stuff, not because of politics. It's because I just genuinely believe I'm a human being. I think I'm made to eat fruit and vegetables and meat, and to get sick and overcome it. I think my body works the way it works. And I understand if you got problems because all you eat is bagel bites and processed foods, I understand that your body's not as strong, your immune system's not as strong, you might need the extra help, great. But it's the fact that on one side, everybody was like, we're not getting this, like, I had people telling me, dude, do you know how long it takes to get a vaccine made? Like, it's going to be a test thing. Like, we're all lab rats for Trump. And I was like, no, I agree. Like, I'm not going to get it. It's not political. I'm just not going to get it. I think I rely on my body. I think I can overcome it.
Yeah.
And if this world has air floating around through it that'll kill me, then I'm meant to be killed. That's how this world works. If a tornado sucks me up in an area that I have dug my roots in, I'm like, this is where I was born, this is where I'll die. If this tornado comes through and I don't have, maybe I just have like a little tractor, like, I'm not getting out in time. If I die from that, I died living a very natural life. And that's kind of how life is, right?
Yeah.
But it's this idea that as soon as it swapped presidents, all of a sudden everybody was like, yeah, expedite it. And that was my confusion. We all morally agreed that this is an unethical thing that we're doing, and that there's other ways that we could handle this probably that would be a little better.
All right. This is for emergency use, as directed by the emergency use, directive.
But it's funny that the idea of putting an unknown substance and injecting it into your body against an unknown virus, that was like, it's expedited. This isn't going to work. This is problematic. Like even Biden and Kamala were like, we're not going to do this. It's going to be a hard decision, but like, I know I'm not doing it. And it's like, that's not misinformation. That's not all these things that you guys support. Like, they say they're not going to do it. And you're like, yes, because I fundamentally disagree with the ethics of this decision. Then the president's change, and suddenly it's not unethical anymore. And now I'm messed up if I don't want to get it, even though I agreed I wasn't getting it with you.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, 3 months later, I'm a monster who wants to kill everybody's grandpa.
Well, I think,
but I just want to end it too with, while that whole thing happened, you also had another fundamental argument, which was misinformation. And everybody's like, you need to get vaccinated because you could be hurting people. You could be killing people, you murderer. Then you have, like MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, there's a few who came out and said, if you got the vaccine, it is 100% effective. You no longer have it. You are immune. It is 100% immune. So if you got the vaccine, you can go to Christmas and see your grandparents. A lot of people did that. I can guarantee you at least one person's grandparents got sick from somebody and died. At least one.
yeah.
And it's the only real example I can think of misinformation actually hurting people or possibly killing people. So that's my whole thing, is it's like, if you're going to argue that misinformation is wrong, you cannot be unbiased and say, well, misinformation is okay in certain circumstances because we didn't know then. So it's okay. It's okay that Fauci said, don't wear a mask. It's ineffective. The media says the vaccine is 100%, gives you 100% immunity. And it's okay for our president and vice president to say that they're not even going to get the vaccine. But then I am villainized because I don't want to get a vaccine that's man-made, put in my body. I never do. I never would. I never would be like, that's a great idea. I'd be like, maybe we'll see how the sickness is. I think I can do it. But it's like, because I'm still living my life. I've made no changes. I just don't want vaccines. It's not a political thing.
Right.
I'm a human being. I drink water. I eat food.
Well, yeah, we saw
But it's weird that I set this standard and people are like, that's noble. That's normal. That's pretty fucking normal. And then all of a sudden I'm a villain for living my life the same way I always have. I'm a villain because I disagree with taking something that's been made too fast. I'm a villain because I'm against the misinformation of telling people that this is 100% effective, and if you got it, go be around people. I'm a villain because I hold on to the original points that I thought were wrong. And everybody else who agreed with me at that time, suddenly I'm a horrible person who needs to change my views because they did. And I'm like, we all, I thought, agreed on this stuff because of the moral and ethical value of the topic. Well, how does your view of it change because somebody else gets in? If I tell you I'm going to go steal this lady's purse, you're going to be like, that's wrong. But then like a different one of your friends says it and you're like, well, it's cool if you do it. Are you okay with ladies' purses being stolen or not? Like this, you have to have a fundamental stance on good and bad. If you do not understand the rationale of this is good and this is bad, maybe you should delete me off Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too. If you don't have any type of fundamental value that you're not willing to go against, then anyone offers anything to you that you could be packaged in a nice golden bow, you're going to accept it, and you're going to go turn around and attack others for not accepting that. So, I mean, I think that kind of gets to the whole thing that we're talking about tonight. And we're kind of right at about an hour, so like we could probably wrap it up here soon. And I think I want to try to get, if there are solutions, or at least like, things you can do. Like this is the time, like And to kind of go off of what you're saying, it's like, yeah, you have a lot of people that were basically like just like you said, they were against the vaccine. Then someone told them it was good, and then now they're zealots for the vaccine, and then they hate everyone else.
The 3 years of testing before rolling it out, suddenly that science didn't matter when somebody else told you it was okay.
Right.
Who was
exactly.
not a scientist.
And that's not based on anything but being given an ideology and defending it as if you're a tribal follower in this psychological war that it doesn't need to happen. And it's like, at the end of the day, I'm open to anything that makes sense to me will make sense to me based on fundamental understandings of this world and values and things that I know to be true. And if those things that I know to be true become questioned, then I start to reassess, what made me question my belief, and how can I either incorporate that into my belief, or how can I change my belief to where this makes sense still. And you don't have people doing that anymore. You can't. I mean, that's the whole point of the show. We say it every single time. We're like, this is the show where we discuss deep topics, and we try to get to the root of these things and find things that we could all agree are fundamental truths to this thing, things that cannot be argued against, that can all be agreed upon from any angle you look at.
And then you build the policy from there.
Right. And
what is
that's
the
what
least harmful way to fix this problem that helps more people than it hurts? It's not that hard.
So when you're faced with something that conflicts or attacks your belief, you have to really, you gotta justify your belief, not to yourself and not in a defensive way, but you have to basically justify it in a righteous way, or you have to come up with some reason why the thing that is challenging your belief is either wrong, like not just based on opinion. I mean, these things can be based on opinion, but if they are, you got to have a reason to back that up. You have to have something that at least, you can't just justify it to yourself. You have to have a substantial thing that you can stand on and say, what you're telling me is false because that. You may not agree with me for this reason, but I know that this reason to be true because of this. You can't just be like, what you're telling me is wrong and you're the one that's blah, blah, blah. That doesn't help. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help them. It doesn't help society. And that's where we found ourselves, is in this rut where no one's going to help each other. No one's going to drop the ladder for the next person, and no one's going to help stand on each other's shoulders to get out of this hole. We're all just individuals sitting and being angry, and that's exactly how if you were going to take advantage of society or of a world, you would want people to be that way. And I'm not saying it's true or people are doing that, but if you were doing that, that's how you'd want people to be.
And what's funny about that is, if you tell somebody, like, it seems like society is trying to be controlled so that they can take advantage of this country and possibly take it over. People say, and people like, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're crazy. So basically what you're telling me is that you think that everything's corrupt. You think that there's all these people in politics who are all just corrupt. It's like, well, I do think that half of this country changes its moral and ethical views depending on who says it. I think that it's been shown that half this country doesn't actually have a moral foundation for their beliefs on what is right or wrong, showing that I am not somebody who can be compromised. This is what I stand for. If I am elected, I'm going to do this the way I say I'm going to do this because I believe this is right. And I would die for what I believe is right because I believe I'm fighting evil. Now you have another guy who's like, hey, I'm not funded by people, but I think we should make it a big topic. It just came to me last night. Like, we should all, it's my own idea. We should all really start getting vaccines and really supporting these pharmaceutical companies and how they've pioneered our health. Dude, and you're like, excuse me? This politician, and then it's like, didn't you get elected off the stance that the pharmaceutical companies need to be regulated and they need to be audited and stuff, like, and investigated?
Big Pharma this year.
But it's like that same person
beat it to death.
That same person who voted him in because he's against Big Pharma will now talk to you and be like, oh, so what? You're against the pharmaceutical company?
We're going to pardon Pfizer for another 4
But that's
years.
what bothers me is it's like, how are you going to vote? How are you going to sit there and argue and defend this person to me? I agree. I liked him when he was against the pharmaceutical companies and the corruption in there. But it's weird that when he changed his views, suddenly you no longer care about the things that affect you. You no longer care about the pharmaceutical companies and how they take advantage of people. You don't care about the fact that a lot of people die and they just threw some money at it and it went away.
It's like, I love that meme that's like the Rage Against the Machine. It's like, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And then it's like some screaming person like, fuck you, do what they tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that sums it up, man.
It does.
It's like within a decade, within 20 years or 15 years, whatever, you have from that to that. And it's like,
A bunch of kids who
I don't know if I'm
attention in
just
history
crazy
class.
or if I'm just like living in a state of 4 dimensions where I can see my past self and my future self and my present self, and they're all kind of the same person. But I was like, wait, back then it was this, and then now it's this? Like, what changed?
See, and I want to say that's one of the things that throws me off the most. I think that's my biggest thing. Is it's as if people don't remember 20 years. I don't understand it. I was born 89. I went through the 90s and have a good memory of the 90s.
Yeah.
There was wild inclusion. Everybody loved each other.
Oh, yeah.
It was racism there. Racism was there
Basically not.
just like kids trying to impress their friends by eating nails. There are stupid people. There are ignorant people, just like there's also smart people. There's not a lot of them, just like there's not a lot of smart people. You know, it's like...
But it wasn't this big.
It's
it was closer to
balances.
civil rights, but it wasn't this big topic. People weren't fighting
it's
about
like,
it.
It's the obnoxiousness of saying,
I think what it is, sorry, not to cut you off. I think what it was is we said in the 90s, we're like, racism's behind us. We've moved on. We're going together, or we're going forward together, and we accept everybody. Now it's like people are trying to tell you accept everybody, but they're like, racism's still here. It's still here.
It's
like,
irrational
but wait,
rationale.
it's not like I thought we moved past that, and like, can't we just move past it? No, you can't move past it. It's fundamentally in you. There's no possible way you can move past it. So it's never going away. We have to keep acknowledging it. We have to keep attacking you for it. And it's like that mentality versus where we were in the 90s is so much different, because in the 90s, we were past it. Now we're back to it. So who's racist now?
But that's my issue with how irrational things are. Here's a mic drop right here. How is it that a group of people can tell me that I need to accept trans people because their identities are a spectrum and there's every type of person, but at the same time not accept that there are racists, there are transphobics, there are homophobics, there are people that disagree. So you need to accept that there's all types of people. Okay, and you need to accept that people who don't agree are included in that group of all types of people. You don't have to agree with racism, but you do have to understand that there's spectrums to human experience. So I know that this person could think they're a woman and this guy could think he's a bird. I know that there are real people who believe that. And it's not my job to validate that or support it. It's my job as an American to fight for their right to express themselves how they want to. But I don't understand the hypocrisy in, no, you do need to get on board with this because everybody is different. It's like, but because everybody's different, shouldn't you accept that some people don't want to get on board with it? That's the idea of this all inclusion, like this everything's a spectrum, everybody's different. But why can't you accept the bad of that side? Because I can. I don't like racism, but I can accept that there are racists. How do you deal with that though? I advocate for America, the melting pot, the place where we all come together. I advocate for what we represent.
Advocate for
and
a
what we
better
stand for.
way.
Yeah, that's all it is. I don't need to advocate for your niche. I advocate for all of us being able to niche it out. Whatever you want to do, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else, I don't mind. But the issue is this constant attack and fighting, like you said, with racism, like we have to keep talking about it. It's like, why? If I'm past it and everybody else is past it, can't we just acknowledge that if somebody's racist, we all kind of just like, not belittle them, but we kind of like all turn and go, hey.
We leave him behind.
Yeah, we all kind of turn and say, I remember there was a time I was at a bar, and it was like we were all wasted. We were there till it shut down. And they're like, all right, we're closing down, everybody out. This had to be over 20, 30 people. And they're all just standing out in the parking lot. Well, one guy, white dude, comes up, and there's a black dude kind of in our group, and he calls him the N-word, hard R, and just keeps saying it, trying to provoke this guy. Well, it's all the white people who surrounded him, and we were like, dude, like, all of us are waiting for one person to jump in, and then, like, we're going to dismantle you. Like, we're going to fuck you up, dude. We're just waiting for one person to do it first so that I didn't start it. You know, you could tell the energy of the group was like hyenas just waiting for one to go in for the bite, or piranhas waiting for one piranha. Once that blood is spilled, they go in. Yeah. You could feel the energy. Everybody was like, we're all 21 to 25. We have fucking problems and issues we haven't dealt with yet, and we need to take it out. And here's my opportunity. Somebody do
something.
But it was the black guy who finally like held us back, and it was like, he looked at us. He goes, I'm not going to respond to him. He goes, I'm not going to keep this going. He goes, I don't want you guys to fight him. And we were like, I don't want to say I don't care, but like, I want to fight him. But he kind of made it clear, like, don't fight him because of what he said to me. Because then it comes off like you just want to hurt him. This guy's drunk. He doesn't know what he's doing. He is a stupid person, but I'm not going to acknowledge this as like a sober person walking up to me and just spreading hate. This is not that situation. This is not the right context. All 20 people stood down and they were like, all right, you know what? He makes a good point. This is something wrong with us that makes us want to kill this guy right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're just looking for an excuse. And it made me and all of us kind of stop and go, what are we doing? This guy's clearly messed up, and he's trying to start something probably because he has his own problems, and part of him wants to just get stomped out. And it's like, you know what? No, this is humanity. This guy's right. There are these types of people, but we can't look at it as he just hates black people. This dude's right. We need to look at it as he might have some problems. He's drunk. We don't know what's going on. Let's not ruin his life because of a moment and label him as what he is without actual context to why he is this way. And the way this dude was like, hey, this racism stuff that he's throwing specifically at me, I don't know the guy, but he came at me and started brutally offending me. It's like, okay, but like, it doesn't offend me. And when I saw him not get offended at all, when I saw a bunch of white people more offended by it, I was like, holy shit, like, this stuff really doesn't matter. It only matters if you say it matters or act like it matters. The reality is if I'm not racist and I love everyone, I shouldn't care that some people don't, because some people don't. I know in my heart that the majority loves each other. So I'm not worried about the small groups that don't, because you guys are outnumbered.
Right.
That should be enough to let us go to sleep at night.
Excellent. That should be it. Excellent way to say it, man. Let the collective love and agreement surpass the hate and the few people out there that actually do it. Yeah, love conquers all. Let love speak for itself. You know, stop looking at hate and being like, we hate you for hating us. Just be like, you know what, we love you. You guys got problems. We're not really going to acknowledge it because we are not about hate. We're not about racism. You want to be racist and all that stuff? You don't have anybody to talk to. We're turning away. If you're going to talk about racism, we're going to walk away. We're not going to stomp you out. We're not going to acknowledge this. We're not going to feed into it. You know what? We're just going to laugh because you're acting absolutely irrational. You're saying stupid stuff. You're acting ignorant. You're not acting educated. Why am I going to lower myself to act like dumb? Like, it's like if somebody walks up and they're like, hey, I think dinosaurs are still alive. Most people would laugh and be like, okay, I'll see you later. Why don't we get offended at stuff like that? You know, if somebody wants to say something that's offensive, okay, great. But that's not who I am. I'm not what you called me. So I'm sorry, you very small-brained person. You're going to have to try to find somebody else who might give you some attention. Yeah. It's not going to be me. This doesn't feed into it. I'm not going to feed into it. You're alone in this. And we need to start acting like all these niche things that America hates. We need to start acting like we hate it. Not by like
advertising we hate it, but by simply just not paying attention to it. I'm not racist. I'm not going to pay attention to racism. It's that simple. I'm not transphobic. I'm not going to pay attention to transphobia. I just think everybody should do their own thing and keep it to themselves. I have my own niche things, and I don't want to tell the whole world, hey, you guys should all be into collecting cards or doing this or doing that. No, you guys do your own thing. I'll find my people who agree with me. And that's how life is. You find people to support you. You don't ask everyone to support you in any cause. Well, you understand that everybody's different.
And that's true. I mean, you could, just to close off this conversation, we're about at the end here, but it's not wrong to get into your groups and to get kind of into your ideology and stuff like that. Just, you don't have to attack other people for it. You don't have to expect other people to accept the way you believe, because if we all just fight this war back and forth, like, at the end of the day, no one's going to win. There's no winning scenario where the other side is completely defeated and then we all move forward as one collective ideology. This has to come from a psychological place of wanting to heal and wanting to understand each other so we can move forward comfortably. But
and I want to say, too, for my closing, is that it's like you said earlier about the point of Meta Perspective Podcast. The whole point is getting to the very bottom of what we can all agree on. And I think that's what America needs to do. We need to get back to conversation. We need to get back to the bottom. And the bottom, bare bones of it is we are America. We are a melting pot. And we support everybody's freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and freedom to bear arms. We support. I don't have to agree, but I support. Because the bare bones is not saying that every American should agree with every American. It's every American should agree that every American can express how they want and be who they want. But we've changed to, no, you should agree with everybody else. We need to get to the bare bones and work from there, which is, hey, I might not agree with your lifestyle, but I will die to defend your expression of it. That's the bare bones. That's the meat. Man. That's where we start, and we go from there.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. We do this podcast every Wednesday, every week. Check out Meta Perspective Podcast on YouTube, and definitely give us a like or a comment if you're watching this not live.
Especially if you have other ideas for future shows. Don't be afraid to throw in ideas, topics, definitely stuff we do read and will investigate.
Yeah, and if you are... if you're into the topics, into the show, let us know. You can always figure out a way to get you on the call line, and you can be part of the discussion for an extended amount of time instead of just calling in at random. Obviously, keep your information anonymous and all that. And we'll probably have some subscriber giveaways coming up here soon. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Join us next time.
Meta Perspective out.
Meta Perspective